Hello again everyone, Saka here, and I'm proud to say that Victoria 3 Confirmed is confirmed, and it's been an ongoing joke for many years that Victoria 3 is confirmed from other Paradox trailers like, oh, there's 3 guys, Victoria 3 confirmed, but it is real, it is here, it is victoria3game.com by Paradox Development Studios, and Martin, the guy who was leading Stellaris when Stellaris first came out, is sort of the game lead here. Let's take a look at the website. I'm not going to show the trailer. You can check that out on their official YouTube channel. But it talked about the engine starting up, the start of the Industrial Revolution, and this will be early 1800s, late 1700s, early 1800s, hopefully to 1930 as the old Vicky 2. But let's take a look at the website and see what they have to offer here. So the journey begins, and if you sign up to the mailing list, you can get this Zeppelin. For early adopters, become a great power, tend your nation as a garden, cutting off withering limbs and nurturing the sprouts of the future in face of rapid scientific progress and social change. So Victoria 2 was one of those games that beat me. I'm a big Paradox fan. I've played most of the recent Paradox games, from Hearts of Iron, Europa Universalis, Stellaris, Crusader Kings, even Imperator Rome. And Vicky 2, I gave it a college try and failed miserably. I really couldn't wrap my head around Vicky 2. So we'll see if Vicky 3 is a little bit more approachable for both Vicky 2 veterans and people like me who have an understanding of Paradox games but need that little bit of encouragement or maybe user interface cleanup. Deep societal simulation. So hopefully they keep the different strata. And Vicky 2, your country was laid out by different groups: your commoners, your artisans, and your elites. And each group had different culture groups, religion groups. They were groups inside of groups, and it really did a good job simulating. If you have a large country, you have a lot of different ideas and wants and needs bouncing around your people. Detailed population demographics, that's what Vicky 2 really excelled at. Instead of just like a nationwide focus or something like that, you've got individual groups of people. What is your Protestant artisans feeling like? What is your Catholic businessmen feeling like? That level of detail defined Victoria. Interesting political decisions. In this time, Africa was being colonized like crazy. The spheres were a big part of Victoria, bringing less developed nations into your sphere, under your influence, and setting up that World War I approach where there were many different allies banding together. Economics, yeah, the sliders in Vicky 2 were nuts. EU4 has a lot of sliders, but most of those are an over-compassing slider. Military spending, naval spending, that sort of thing. Vicky, sliders within sliders, I tell you. So we'll see if the economics are a little bit easier to grab onto a Vicky 3. The richest political simulation of the modern world returns. Cultivate and trade dozens of raw materials and finished goods. It was all about trade, just so many things your artisans could make and things that your different culture groups and your different strata need. Manufacturing luxury goods, consumer goods. It's Hearts of Iron on steroids. In-depth information on your population as it changes and adapts through decades. Dozens of political reforms for your population to demand. Another big part of Vicky that sort of overwhelmed me was just the amount of reforms and decisions you could take. Focusing on literacy, focusing on military, focusing on economy. It was just nuts. Use your diplomatic prowess to impose your will on neighbors and rivals. This is where I think the spheres will come into play. Scrolling on down, Dev Diary, we'll take a look at that in a moment. There is the announcement trailer, and we have a screenshot over here. So I don't know if it kind of looks like the map that they've used for Crusader Kings 3 and Imperator Rome. That would be a good starting point. Nice, clean user interface from the look of it. This is the county of Leinster. Looks like that we have some infrastructure and usage. Railroads were a huge thing in Victoria, making sure that you laid down infrastructure to move your goods around. Your GDP, taxation and expenses. Standard of living. So here are your different strata, and struggling, middling, and secure. How many pops? Peasants, migration and growth. Your pops would move from one state or county to another, just depending on what was available. Here is our outliner. So 1836 is a time here. If you're thinking about simulating the American Civil War to see if you might be able to keep the United States from going to civil war, give it a shot. If you wanted to, I guess, there were these historical starts in Victoria too, where you could start in 1861-ish, 1862, and play as the Confederate States of America. So I don't know if there will be historical starts in this game to allow you to do that, but certainly I think if you played as the United States and you took the decision or the ideas to go to civil war, it may be able to do a tag swap. Do you want to play as this country, or do you want to play as your broken off independence faction? So that could be entirely possible. Let's take a look at under development, your markets. So we have the most underproduced and most overproduced commodities. Perhaps you could sell those on a global market. For income, looks like we have Dai Nam. So this is Eastern Asia with import and export routes. Setting up these trade routes will be great for the min-maxers, I believe. Relations improvement begun, sure. Generals and commanders. Okay, so it says Wednesday night. Hearts of Iron has a 24-hour sort of clock. You play hour by hour on the ticks. For this, it may be day-night cycle. So each tick will be January 8th day, January 8th night, perhaps. Let's take a look at the next screen here. So we've got our politics. Overview, constitutional laws and institutions. A lot of big decisions here. Education, I know literacy was huge in Vicky 2. Cost of bureaucracy, interesting. And that's another thing about Vicky 2 that I really liked, was being able to appoint your different ministers, different cabinet members to push your country in the direction that you want to go. I'm sure that comes at a bureaucracy cost. And graphs within graphs. Vicky 2 was heavy. It might as well have been an Excel spreadsheet with a basic user interface. So it looks like they're keeping the graphs at a quick look. And all of these different modifiers and all the different people in charge. Armed forces, landed gentry, the industrialists, the petite bourgeoisie, and the intelligentsia. Okay. Mercen Adana. And as your cities grow, I imagine if this is on the new engine, we're going to see those cities actually grow on the map. You'll be able to see at a quick glance, where's my farmland, where are the mountains, hills, where are my ports, that sort of thing. Very good that the map is as involved as it is. And there we go, get a special reward by signing up to the newsletter. Get yourself a unique in-game Zeppelin. So let's take a look at Dev Diary 0, where it all starts, the vision. So Dev Diary 0, basically the start before the start. Hello everyone, yes, you're seeing this right. No, this isn't a belated April Fool's joke. I thought that at first as well. After these years and all these memes, Victoria 3 really is confirmed at last. I'm Martin Wiz Onward, the game director of Victoria 3, and it's my absolute pleasure to finally be able to reveal what I've been working on since 2018, around the time I stepped down as game director of Stellaris. And that was a big rumor or hope or dream of us Paradox fans, and whenever Martin moved on to a new, untitled, unannounced project, everyone made a joke. Oh, it's Vicky 3. It's gotta be Victoria 3. And apparently it was. So what then is Victoria 3? I can start by telling you that it is most definitely a proper Victoria game, namely a game with a core focus on economy, politics, and internal country management with the iconic Victoria Pop system not just included as a core mechanic but made even deeper than either of its predecessors. Victoria 2, as I talked about, had a very in-depth population management, or you could see your population pretty in-depth. So if they took that a step further, I'm all for that. Just make it easier to sort of navigate and understand exactly what I'm looking at. Though Victoria 3 is its own game and not an iteration on Victoria 2, our ambition is to create a worthy successor that stays true to the core values of the Victoria series while using what we've learned over the last decade in terms of making games more accessible. That was my next point. So that we can use that accessibility to build an even deeper game for old and new players alike. Our vision for Victoria 3 is to create what we call a society sim, a game that is first and foremost about the internal workings of the 19th century country that you are playing and how its society is shaped over the course of the game. So very wise to say this is not a map painter, although min-maxers would have probably no issue looking at, say, Spiffing Brit, to paint the map by using things in a way that the game developers didn't intend. But Martin is stressing that this is a society game first. Politics, economy, and diplomacy are the three most important parts of the game. Wars are, of course, a part of the game, just as they were part of the Victorian age, but Victoria 3 is not a war game or a game about map painting. Now, I didn't read this before, but he's addressing those ideas that I'm talking about. And before you start speculating crazily about what is and what is not in the game, no, there is no mana. That's a throwback to Imperator Rome. Johan has taken a lot of flack recently, especially with the new Europa Universalis DLC. And Imperator Rome was based off of a mana scale first and foremost, and a lot of people wanted to get away from this whole idea that you have to wait 6 months to make a decision because your ruler isn't good enough or because your cabinet isn't good enough. Now, there is going to be a lot of dev diaries going forward to dig into the mechanics of the game, but to wrap up this dev diary, I want to briefly touch on the 4 game design pillars we have been following when designing and building Vicky 3. National gardening. Building, shaping, tweaking, and evolving your nation is first and foremost focus of the game. Events outside your country's borders can naturally affect your country in significant ways, but the game should never rely on war to provide the main source of enjoyment. So again, stressing the run your country, you're going to have enough problems by yourself, more or less what your neighbor is doing. Diplomatic eminence. War is a continuation of diplomacy, and everything that is achievable by war should also be achievable through diplomacy, even if that diplomacy sometimes comes at the point of a gun. Everything is political. Politics is at the heart of Victoria 3, and all major features should some way tie back into the pops and interest groups that form the core of game politics. Era of change. The Victorian era was a time of immense change politically, technologically, culturally, militarily, and socially. And these changes should be reflected in the experience of playing a campaign of Victoria 3. That's all for this week, but we'll see you next week when we'll be talking about the return of the Victoria Pop system and the introduction of dependence. Interesting. We'll also have more exciting news to share as we go. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Discord, Paradox Forums, and the official Vicky 3 website to stay up to date. So very excited. Victoria 2, as I said, I wanted to enjoy it, but it was just over my head. I couldn't really get a good grasp of how to move forward. So if they address that idea in accessibility, it's a game that I really would enjoy. I have no doubt. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the dev diaries will continue to show in the coming weeks. And if that's something you want to see, let me know and I will cover those dev diaries weekly. But that will do it for me. Like, share, and subscribe if you are so bold. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I'll see you in the next Vicky 3 video. How weird is that to say? Take care.